a new part file, so I'll select a metric template file. So let's select the standard millimeter part template file. And with this part file created, I am now in my sketch mode. Again, my sketching tools are along the top and my origins on my graphic screen. I'm going to go over here to my insert ribbon and select insert AutoCAD file. And then browse to my claw AutoCAD file and click open. The next dialog will allow you to select geometry in order to import into Inventor. This box right here are all of the layers inside this AutoCAD file. You can freeze and thaw certain layers. Over here I can hold down my scroll wheel and my mouse and I can zoom in and out and pan. I can also right click and do a zoom window to zoom into a certain area of my AutoCAD file. But what I want to bring in is this profile in my right view here. So I'm going to start freezing some layers. And then instead of importing the entire selection set, I'm going to uncheck the all and then select with a window just that profile to bring in to my sketch. Click next and then finish on my dialog, and then now that profile is now inserted into my Inventor sketch. I'm now ready to extrude my sketch, so let's finish our sketch and then select the extrude tool. The profile for the sketch, I want to select 3 selections, my entire profile here, and I want to include those holes into this base feature. So I'm going to select those also. The depth of my extrusion will be 25 millimeters, and I'm going to switch the profile or the extrusion to go into the part like this. So I'm going to select my direction arrow right there and then click OK. Let's examine our view cube here. So if I hit the little home view, this is not a desired home view for me. So I want to rotate this around and kind of get into the area where I want my home view. Make it more precise by clicking on the corner of my view cube, and I want to establish this view as my new home view. So then I will right click on my view cube and set current view as home and then fit it to the view. So now if I change my orientation around, then do a right click and home view, I'm now at my new established home view. I am now ready to establish my second feature, which will be the notch going through the center of this part. So let me establish a sketch plane on this front face right here. And because I want to constrain this to the top quadrant of my circular reference here, if I look at my left view, you'll see I want to constrain to this top edge right there. So basically I can just do a project geometry and select that top quadrant, and now that quadrant is now projected to my sketch plane, which you will see right here when I go to my left view. That purple line is now your projected line, and I can constrain to that with any features. So I will start with a rectangle, select my projected line because it's going to constrain right to that line, and just kind of draw freely down. I need to add my arc to the bottom, so I'll do my 3-point arc. First selection, and then the second selection will be where it ends, and then for the third selection it's going to be basically the radius roughly of this arc. I want to stop it right when I see my 2 tangent constraints up here in the corners. Once I see those tangents appear, I will click right there, and then that line, those 2 lines will be tangent to my arc. I'm now going to center my extrusion or my feature here along this face. So I'll select the vertical constraint, my center point of my arc, and then the midpoint of that line right there. So now if I click and drag this, you'll see that it is fully constrained along the center. I now just have to add 2 dimensions to get it 100% constrained, as stated right here. So let's first add our radius of our arc, which will be 5 millimeters. and then the length of my extrusion, which will be 60 millimeters. My sketch is now fully constrained, so I'm now ready to finish out of my sketch mode and extrude my profile. I want to select both of those profiles, so this profile right here and then the arc. Make sure I get that included. Since I will be taking the material away, I will switch from the join extrusion to the cut extrusion. And then I want to be sure that it goes through the entire part, so I'll select the extents to all and then click OK to accept. Examine my part, and as you can see, that extrusion now goes all the way through. I now want to add my holes to this part, and since the center points were already established inside my sketch that I brought in, I want to share that sketch so that I can include it in any additional features. So I will right click on sketch and say share sketch, which will then share it to the top of the browser and also is visible in your graphics screen so that you can then use that geometry for additional features. My features will be a hole, so I'm going to select my hole tool and then just select those center points for the positioning of those holes. These will go through the entire part and they'll have a diameter of 8.02. And then I'll click OK. I will examine my part, and you can see the holes go all the way through the part. I am now done with my shared sketch, so I will right click on this sketch and turn off the visibility. Taking note that I cannot delete that sketch. If I do so, those holes which are dependent on that sketch will also get deleted. So I'm just going to turn the visibility of that sketch off. Now to do a little cleanup, I'm going to add some fillets, and these fillets will have a radius of 20 millimeters. So I'll put in 20 for my radius, and then do my selections. So those two edges along the front, and then rotate along the back, and then those two edges right there, and then click apply. And there's my fillets cleaning up my part file, and now I'm ready to include the embossed text along the back. So let me orientate my part. I want to look directly at the right view, and then I'm going to right click on this plane here and establish a new sketch. So I'm sketching right on that plane. I'm going to add my text. Just pick a point anywhere, and then change the size of my text to 7 millimeters, and then put in my text. And then select done. I can fully constrain this text using my constraints, my geometric constraints, to get this locked in. But for this exercise, we will just place it right along that bottom edge right there. I'm now finished with my sketch, so I can select my finished sketch area and orientate my part around so I can see which direction my extrusion is going. So now I'm going to click on the emboss, and for the profile I will select my text. As you can see, the arrow is going away from the part. I want to emboss into my part, so I'm going to select engrave from face, and I'm also going to switch my direction to go into the part. I will accept the 1 millimeter depth, but I am going to change the face color to copper. And then select OK to accept those. Let's examine the part, and as you can see, there's my embossed with the copper along the inside face, and it is going into my part. I am now done with this part file, so I will save it so that we can later insert it into our assembly, and I will just call it cloth.